I will be discussing teaching and assessment strategies using the multiplication app. I will discuss the following. We will consider the most essential learning competencies that are related to multiplication. Then I will walk you through the multiplication game and how we will use the app in teaching multiplication. And lastly, we will also discuss how to use the app for assessment. Multiplication appears in a number of most essential learning competencies in grades 1 to 4. Here, I list down the competencies related to multiplication by quarter. For example, in grade 2, quarter 2, a competency is that we illustrate multiplication as repeated addition using groups of equal quantities, arrays, counting by multiples, equal jumps on the number line. We also have other learning competencies related to multiplication in grade 2, quarter 2. And moreover, there are also most essential learning competencies in grade 3, quarter 2, such as visualizes multiplication of numbers 1 to 10 by 6, 7, 8, and 9. Also visualizes and states basic multiplication facts for numbers up to 10. And then also in grade 4, quarter 2, a learning competency is to identify the multiples of a given number up to 100. The multiplication game has been developed by the Math Plus team through the support of DOST-PSHERT and the University Research Council of Ateneo de Manila University. You can download the app through the website mathplusresources.wordpress.com. You can find it by clicking on the app download. The multiplication game facilitates mastery of the multiplication table through research-based representation, like skip counting, repeated addition, and array models. The sequence also follows the learning trajectory and official DepEd curriculum, which starts with multiples of 1, 2, 5, and 10 before the other multiples. You may download the app by clicking on the icon for Android devices and the icon for laptops and personal computer. The first menu in the multiplication game is choosing a character. Once they've chosen a character, the player may choose to be a beginner, advanced 1, advanced 2, or an expert player. Then, for example, if he or she chooses to be a beginner, there will be choices for the levels. Of course, they should begin with level 1. So let's watch the video, which will walk us through the use of the multiplication app. There are many ways to teach multiplication to our students. Making multiplication fun is a great way to motivate your students. Integrating technologies into learners' activities will keep them more engaged in practicing multiplication. The first strategy we will discuss here to multiply single-digit factor is skip counting. It is also the strategy used in grade 4, quarter 2 to identify the multiples of a given number up to 100, as in the module from DepEd. So we have the following exercises. Okay, we need to supply the missing multiples. Now, using the multiplication app, we can introduce counting, skip counting to younger students. Let them first play the beginner level 1, that is skip counting by 2s. When they reach level 2, they can do skip countings by 5, and then level 3, skip counting by 10. Advanced 1 begins with skip counting by 3s, and then level 2 is skip counting by 4s, and so on. Multiplication may also be illustrated using equal jumps in the number line. The teacher may first illustrate writing multiplications that match the repeated jumps on the number line. And then using the multiplication game, students may use skips of 2 and skips of 3, for example, to help them multiply by 2s and 3s. In the multiplication game, players input the missing multiple in the number line. For beginners, levels 5 to 8, students play with multiples 2, 5, and 10. For advanced 1, players should play levels 5 to 8, okay, so that they can deal with multiples of 3, 4, and 6. In advanced 2, levels 5 to 8, students play with multiples of 7, 8, and 9. The next strategy that we will discuss is repeated addition and the use of array. Countable manipulatives turn multiplication into hands-on concept. If it were face-to-face, I am sure you will be using buttons, bottle cups, or any objects that can be grouped or formed into an array. Maybe you can ask the parents to do it for you because it will be a challenge in this online setup. From the DepEd module, we have the following parts, discussing how to write a multiplication equation using repeated addition and array. For example, 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2 is equal to 10, and the corresponding multiplication sentence is that 5 times 2 is equal to 10. Now, using an array, multiplication is also illustrated by giving 8 houses in 2 groups of 4. So 2 times 4 is equal to 8. Now, using the multiplication game in the beginner level 9, players give the product of 2 times 5. When they press 10, the app will show that it is like 2 groups of 5. In the advanced 1, level 9, students play with multiplication equations involving 3. For example, 3 times 10, which is 30, is 3 groups of 10. In the expert level 1, players are shown red dots on an array, and players input the number of red dots. For example, on your screen, you can see 6 red dots. Therefore, players would press 6. In the expert 2 level, there will be more red dots that players must use multiplication to count the number of dots. So as the number of red dots become bigger, players will refrain from counting each dot one by one, but would rather use a multiplication equation to get the number of dots. Hopefully, by the time students reach the level, they know how to multiply mentally. Another strategy that is very useful in teaching multiplication is highlighting the commutative property of multiplication. If students understand the commutative property, they will be able to handle multiplication tasks more effectively. Using the DepEd module, students are introduced to the concept of commutativity. Now, this can be reinforced by playing the multiplication game. In beginner level 10, players input the product of 8 times 2, and the app will show that it is like 8 groups of 2. And then the players will realize that it's the same number as 2 groups of 8. In advanced level 10, students play with multiplication equations involving 3. For example, 9 times 3 is 27, and the app will show that it is 9 groups of 3. So that is how the multiplication game can highlight the commutative property of multiplication. The multiplication app may be used as a formative assessment. At this point, the idea is to engage the students' interest and motivate them to reach as many levels as possible. So let them play. Just let the children play with the apps for a fixed amount of time per day. For example, 15 minutes per day. Let the children enjoy and reach as many levels as possible. The teachers may monitor their students by asking them to send screenshots or a written record of their progress. The students' output may enable teachers to see some learning patterns, and they can also use this record to provide timely feedback and interventions when necessary. Because maybe for younger students, it's difficult to ask them to send you screenshots of their games, then it will just be easier if you ask them to record using pens and paper. After a series of informal activities and formative assessment using the app performed by our students, they will now be more ready to do more structured activities or even a longer performance task. As you know, performance tasks are applications of knowledge. They may not be limited to a single correct answer. They should demonstrate learning through transfer to new situation. Here, I'll discuss 2 sample tasks. So one example would be a movie theater, a project involving a movie theater. Here, students are asked to design a movie theater by applying multiplication. This task will be in-depth look at how arrays are used in multiplication. The first task is to count the number of seats. So your instruction would be for students to get hold of a seat plan of their favorite movie theater. They should count the seats in groups or sections, and then we ask them to describe how they counted the seats. Use colored pens, numbers, and symbols to tell how they counted the seats. Another task is expanding the movie theater. So the instructions would be as follows. Using the same seat plan in task 1, design an extension of the movie theater if the owner would like to add 50 more seats. Students are free to add the seats anywhere they like. Of course, the owner should expand the movie theater. Then we ask the student to count the seats in groups or sections and give us a total number of seats. They should be able to describe how they counted the seats using colored pens, numbers, and symbol to tell us how they counted the seats. And then, lastly, we ask the student to reflect on why they chose such a design. Additional tasks may be asking students to compute the expected revenue after expansion, considering that each section has a different ticket price. Another variation would be, instead of a movie theater, it could be an arena. For example, the MOA Arena or the Araneta Coliseum. So these are just examples of tasks. I'm sure you have a lot of ideas on how to use multiplication in designing performance tasks. So lastly, let me end with the following links. Please visit our website and follow us on social media through our Facebook page, also YouTube, so that you will be updated on our latest apps.